You're listening to the Solano Paranormal Podcast, where the unknown meets investigation. From haunted locations to unexplained encounters, we dive deep into the mysteries that surround us. With your host, Mitch McLean, get ready to explore the truth beyond the veil.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Solano Paranormal Podcast. I'm Sarah Lee, and Mitch is currently out on the road. So tonight, I'm going to be diving into a fascinating topic: witchcraft, paganism, magic, and the mystery that surrounds them, unpacking some myths and sharing some truths. I'll break this into 5 parts: definitions, type of witches, good versus dark magic, tools, and simple spells. So light a candle, grab a notebook, and let's dive in. And I just want to preface this by saying I am a witch. I've mentioned it in other podcasts before. So some of this I can speak to on my own. And what I did make sure I researched and got the correct information to. So I'm not speaking on the behalf of anybody else. Definitions. People often get confused. What is the difference between paganism, Wicca, and witchcraft? Well, really, paganism is a broad term. It's earth-based and spirituality outside of Christianity, Judaism, or Islam. Think honoring moon cycles, solstice, and nature spirits. It is an umbrella term with Wicca and witchcraft falling under it, but so do many other religions and practices. Wicca is a modern pagan religion created in the 20th century by Gerald Gardner. Wiccans have rituals, holidays, deities, and follow the reed, and it harm none, do what ye will, as well as the threefold law. So it is a fairly newer pagan religion, but there's quite a few followers out there now. Witchcraft, however, is a practice. It's magic, it's spells, it's divination. A witch can be Wiccan, but doesn't have to be. You could be a secular witch with no religious affiliation at all. And I've even known Christians who practice magic, quite a few actually. So it all just really depends on your inner self and what you feel is right for you. And that's where the confusion can come in, especially with Hollywood stereotypes, green skin witches. With that foundation, let's explore the different types of witches. People hear witch and think of a dark figure casting curses. Woo! But a witch could simply be someone who works with herbs and energy. It could be that next door neighbor. It could be that person down the block. It could be your coworker 2 desks over. You never know. So, to sum it up, paganism is an umbrella term. Wicca is a religion, and witchcraft is a practice. And they can all overlap, but they're not the same. Now, witch types and cultural awareness. So have you ever seen reference to green witches, head witches, tech witches? What's going on there? Modern labels describe focus areas, but there are many other focuses than just the ones I'm going to talk about. And not all witches fit into just one. Like I for sure fit into many. So it's again up to the practitioner themselves of choosing what they want to call themselves. They may not want to call themselves anything at all. Sometimes these terms are just what their focus is, but not a name that they use for themselves. So a green witch, they work with plants, herbs, gardening, and the natural world. They usually have, because of, being called a green witch, they usually have amazing green thumbs. They have the most beautiful gardens. They just seem to be able to grow anything and everything. A lot of times they grow herbs and know exactly what to do with them. If I had a green thumb at all, I would grow me a garden of very abstract plants that aren't common in gardens. I would also plant black variations of very different types of plants and flowers. I would also like to have a poisonous garden. I am not a negative witch, but I just think the idea of a poisonous garden is kind of fun and interesting. But alas, I have a brown thumb. I don't have a green thumb. So pretty much everything I try to grow dies. So I let everybody else around me grow whatever they want, and I throw out seeds and hope something sticks. Kitchen witches, magic through cooking, teas, and meals. Now, if you've ever had somebody tell you that their special ingredient was love, there's a very, very good chance that that really was the special ingredient. Kitchen witches, they really love to cook for people and have get-togethers and have people over for big dinners. When they talk about doing magic through cooking, they're not trying to spell all their friends and family when they come over. It may just be love and protection. And, as they're cooking, they put those intentions into the food. They're not out there trying to hex anybody or anything like that, usually. Hedge witches, they focus on shamanic journeying, liminal spaces, and spirit work. So kind of like how hedges are on the edge of two properties, they separate the two properties. That's kind of where the hedge witches work. They kind of work, whether you want to call it different dimensions, different planes, different parts of spiritual work. They're kind of in that in between zone. So it's so vast. I can't even explain it. I would love if somebody was a hedge witch would contact us and do an interview and tell us more about it. Sea witches, they work with ocean tides, shells, salt, and lunar water. Storm witches, this is one I used to call myself more. I live in Northern California right now, and we really don't have much for storms at all. So I don't call myself a storm witch at the moment, but I did when I was younger and lived in Washington. And if I ever move back, I will again. And I do feel very connected to the weather. I do feel very connected to thunderstorms and the wind. For me, the sun and the heat is just too much for me. My skin can't handle it. My body can't handle it. My eyes can't handle it. It's too much. I love the cloudy day. I love the soft drizzles. I love the lightning. I love the thunder, the power feeling behind it. The wind as it rushes by you. I like my weather to move and fill and not just be humid or hot and dry and sun burning down on you. I really want to feel around me what's going on. And it sprinkled a few days ago, and not gonna lie, I was out there like, "More, give me more." It wasn't enough for me, so I'm shouting to the sky, "I want more." So hopefully going into fall here, we'll get a little bit more, and that would be amazing. Now, divination witches, they work with tarot or pendulums, astrology, or runes. A lot of you have probably heard of tarot, palm reading, astrology. Some of you it's not strictly a witchy thing, believe in astrology, and a lot of people know the zodiacs. So, like, I'm a Taurus. What are you? Comment down below. Tell me if you think it fits you. So, there's lots of different types. They don't necessarily work across with all the things. They may, or they may just specialize in just one. That being said, like I said, all these terms, people can be a little bit of all of them. They don't have to be just one. So a lot of witches use these different types of divinations as well. Pendulums, I didn't bring mine over to show you, but essentially it's usually like a crystal or a mineral, sometimes metals that are kind of like a triangle that hang, and you hold it from a chain or a string, and it'll give you like yes or no type answers based on which way it swings. A old wives' tale version that I've seen, people use that aren't witches is the trying to figure out what the gender of a baby is to somebody who's pregnant. I've seen where people will tie a string onto a ring and dangle that above the pregnant belly. And, based on which way it swings, it may be a boy or a girl. So, divinations can be used by a lot of people that aren't witches as well. And there's lots of types, throughout the years. different cultures and things like that. Now, tech witches, these really fascinate me. And if you're a tech witch, definitely, definitely, definitely contact us and give us an interview. I want to know more. How do you do this? What do you do? What works? So, what a tech witch is, they use digital tools, they use apps, and they even use coding for spell work. Now, I don't know that I'm not really good with coding, so I wouldn't be able to do that. But what are these apps? What are these digital tools? I can go out there and Google it, but do they actually work? Like, how do you feel they are? Like, are there specific ones that you think work better than others? Drop it in the comments and let us know. I want to know more. Cosmic witches, they work with astrology, moon cycles, planetary alignments. Eclectic witches, now we're moving into my territory. So I consider myself an eclectic chaos witch, and we're going to cover both of these right here, just real quick. Um, they mix the eclectic witch, they mix and match traditions based on what resonates. So again, I don't feel that I want to use every practice out there. I have mentioned in previous podcasts that I believe in the universal consciousness and reincarnation. I work a lot with energy and intentions and gut instinct. So for me, I mix and match what I take from witchcraft based on what works with my energy and my energy flow. That's not going to work with everybody. Um, some people need a focus. Some people can pull from a bunch of different things. Sometimes people have a few focuses. Um, and then the chaos witch, they use their personal beliefs as a tool, experimental, and they have no rigid systems. You can't tie me down with a rigid system. I'm just not going to have it. It's my brain just doesn't work that way. It's going to fight you if you try. So, and I love to be experimental. Let's try this. Let's try that. I don't do anything negative. I don't deal in negative energy. But I do practice and try and experiment with different positive energy things, different crystals, different herbs. I'll pull different, things from different parts of witchcraft and see what works for me and my energies. And my belief system, like I said, universal consciousness, energy, reincarnation, all that kind of stuff. Um, Energy is my personal belief. So I'm using energy as a tool. And just a fun fact, witch is actually a gender neutral term that many men and non binary transgender practitioners are starting to prefer to use more often nowadays. We commonly hear the words wizard used in, the media, in books and movies and cartoons. And some people do like to use the term wizard, and that's totally okay. And then warlock, again, people may want to use it, and that's totally okay if they do. But it also can have a negative connotation and be derogatory to some people if it's used and they don't want to use that terminology. So don't think of witches as just being women. Witches are not just women. There are many, many, many men and non binary and transgender witches out there. So don't hear witch and think woman, please. And then there are more culturally specific paths such as brujeria in Latin America, voodoo from Haiti, hoodoo from African American traditions, and shamanism in various indigenous cultures. But here's the big caution. Now, when I said up there, eclectic witch, you could take from different types of witchcraft focus or different practices. When I say that, you're not taking from everyone. You're taking only that which is open to you and your culture. So you have to be really careful. Um, big caution. Those practices I just mentioned and many, many more belong to very specific cultures. It is not okay for someone outside of that culture to cherry pick or mimic them without understanding and respecting it. And even then, understanding and respecting is not enough. You've got to have some kind of connection to a person, those people. You can't just like, "Oh, I've learned about it, so I can do it now." Respect it, please. So it is one thing to call yourself a kitchen witch and bless your pasta water. Totally okay. But it is not okay to say you are practicing voodoo when you are not part of that tradition. And this is where I have to say, don't steal what is not yours. Respect, admire, and learn, but don't claim any practices that are not yours. Cultural appropriation is not okay, and it can cause harm and offense. And you know what? Respect is so magical, so just be respectful. So now we'll move on to something people are a little curious about, but sometimes scared of: good versus bad magic, hexes, and even Satanism. So, good versus negative, hexes, and Satanism. Here's the thing: in pop culture, magic gets split into white magic and black magic, but it is really not that simple. Magic itself is neutral. Fire is neutral. It can harm a home by burning it down, or it can help a home by warming it up. What matters is the intent: healing, protection, growth. Those are all constructive. Curses, control, and harm, those are destructive. So it really depends. There is people who say they do black magic, bad magic, and that's on them. That's their decision. But don't assume that all magic is negative. It is not. Magic is neutral. So, what about hexes? They're basically intentional spells meant to cause misfortune. Some witches avoid them. I do. Personally, that's how I feel. Like I said, I deal with intuition and energy and intention. And so for me, that's negative energy, not positive. So I don't like to work with it, but I'm not going to look down on anybody who decides to. That's for them to decide. Others will use it for various reasons: good, bad, sometimes for self defense. Ethics on it are personal, so everybody gets to make their own decision. You don't get to judge them for why they get to decide how they practice. Some witches feel hexes can be justified. For example, if you're protecting yourself from an abusive situation or you've had an injustice done to you, some people might do what's called a binding spell. If they have somebody gossiping about them, talking down to them, saying negative things, being verbally abusive to them. There's various versions of a binding spell. You may have seen it on various, movies, TV shows, things like that. It's usually where they take like a picture of the person and wrap something around and around and, you know, say something to the effects of, "I bind you," or "you can no longer talk," or, they have variations on it. Some people may feel they need to do that to protect themselves. So again, I'm going to keep saying, we don't judge, we don't judge, we don't judge. Do you want me to judge you? Let them do their thing. Uh, let's talk about a group with negative stereotypes, just like paganism, because of misinformation and fear. This may be scary to some people, but it really is not. Satanists. Before we talk about them, here's two quick definitions. Theistics. This is a belief in a god, a deity, or a supernatural being as real. So Christians are theistic. Non-theistics, without that belief, symbolic or metaphorical. So like Buddhism, that is non-theistic. So let's start by busting some myths. Myth number one: All Satanists worship the devil. Nope, it's false. Most are non-theistic, believe it or not. Myth 2. Satanists are all evil. Again, false. A lot of Satanists are non-theistics, and they focus on ethics and empowerment. Myth number 3. Satanists are witches. Nope, that's completely separate. Some may practice witchcraft, but it is not required. So you do see in movies, oh, the Satanists, they're practicing rituals. Christians practice rituals too. What do the Catholics do every time they go to church? They take the bread, they take the wine. That's not a ritual. Doesn't mean they're practicing witchcraft. It just means they're practicing rituals for their religion. So, satanic panic is a fear based on pop culture, and centuries old propaganda. It's not reality, just like the witch trials. The witch trials most often murdered women, and the women often weren't even witches. Some of them might have been. And back then, that was before science and a lot of doctors. So you had midwives that were called witches. You had the lady, down in town square that she made herbs and grew a garden. And when you were sick, she could give you stuff to help heal you and make you feel better. Called a witch. Maybe she was, maybe she wasn't. But we had a lot of people throughout the centuries called witches and murder. And, it's no, it's just not okay. Um, and the satanic panic is the same thing. It's all been blown up like everything else. So let me tell you a little bit about a few. So first, there's the Church of Satan, founded in 1966 by Anton LaVey. This is a non-theistic religion. They don't believe in Satan as a literal being. For them, Satan is a symbol of freedom, indulgence, individuality, and rejecting dogma. Now, I don't know a ton about them, but I have learned some, and I have checked out from the library their Satanic Bible, and I have read it. And most of it, nothing wrong with it whatsoever. I did not find that it was evil. It wasn't negative. It wasn't making you do bad things. Most of it was actually very empowering feeling to read. And then there's another one, the Satanic Temple. They were founded in 2013, so pretty newer. They're also non theistic. But unlike the Church of Satan, they're heavily involved in activism. They fight for separation of church and state, bodily autonomy, and personal freedoms. Their 7 tenets emphasize compassion, scientific truth, and justice. And you know what? I'm going to say it here, and I'm not going to lie, and it can be out there for the world. I am a member. Now, that being said, they are a legal religion. They are, they have the proper paperwork with the IRS, but they don't have regular meetups everywhere all over the country. So I don't get to go to regular, worship days or anything like that. But I do follow everything they're doing. I believe everything they're doing. I participate when I can. And I very much stand 100% behind what they are for. If you're interested, look up more. Don't just let society tell you what's right and wrong. I'm not trying to push them. I'm just saying I fall with them a little bit more. Like I said, I did a bit of research on the Church of Satan as well. Didn't really feel as right for me, but this did. So that's the direction I went into. And then we have the theistic Satanists. These are smaller groups, less organized. You don't find like huge churches promoting themselves around or anything like that. Like you will see the other two will promote themselves all over the internet. You may find groups of Satanists and their little, I don't know what they call their groups. I almost said coven like witches, but it's not a coven. Um, I'm not sure why. I don't know if it's just they're afraid of people knowing. There are groups out there that are probably, doing their thing, being loud and vocal, and I just have not heard about it. You may have, I'm not sure. Depending on how they decide to practice, it's again not all like in the movies. Oh, boogie boogie, we got to kill people, worship people, sorry, kill people to give to, their souls to the devil and stuff like that. Some of them may, some of them do. I don't know. There's all different types, and it's a harder group to nail down each little group and area. So again, if you know more, comment below and tell me, what you know. Uh, and again, if the other two as well, comment if you want to come on for an interview or something like that. We always are opening to learning more. Um, so this is a theistic group. So they do practice and believe in Satan or a similar adversarial figure as a real spiritual being and honor him. Um, like I said, they're small groups. They a lot of times keep their practices private and just to their groups, so I don't have a lot of information on them. So to summarize, non-theistic Satanism is symbolic and philosophical. Theistic Satanism is literal belief and devotion. And most Satanists, they are non-theistic. So let's shift a little bit here from philosophy into something more hands-on, the tools of the craft. So we're going to talk about some tools and objects. I have a few here with me. Not everything, even though I probably do have everything. I just brought a few. So the witch's toolkit, again, every witch practices different. So they will have different tools. They will use different tools, different ways. But these are just some basics. So these are some of the most used tools. Now, the athame or ritual dagger. Now, you see on TV, they always are cutting themselves and putting blood into their spells. And there may be witches out there that do that. There are practices. They use animals or they may cut their own. And that's, again, up to them. That's their decision. I don't. Athames and ritual daggers actually generally are not used for drawing blood in practices. They're more to cut and define and direct energy flow. So mine in particular, it is actually a crystal or mineral. It is selenite. And I particularly like this one because it's really good for clearing negative energy from people and spaces, promoting inner peace, and amplifying the energy of other crystals, which I have way too many in my house. Way too many. So if you ever want me to do a live Q&A and show and tell, drop a comment below and let us know, and I can always do that because I have an unreasonable amount of crystals and minerals in my house that I love. It's one of my best collections, me and my husband. So, the reason I like this for my athame is because sometimes you might be wanting to cut ties. So you may have some kind of tie or connection to somebody that's no longer serving you good energy, positive energy. You might need to cut that to let them go, let yourself go, and break that negative energy flowing into you. So that's where the selenite for me is good. A lot of witches have actual knives, actual daggers. That is totally okay. Everybody has what they want. This is what I choose to use. Um, I also like it because, like I said, using it to cut, um, I can bring it to when we do investigations. And at the end of the investigation, if I have this like in my car, I don't always take it in with me. I probably have it out in my vehicle, but I would take it and I'd go around my entire body, kind of, just like that, all the way down and around my feet. And then kind of, if I'm near somewhere that has some dirt or grass, after I do that, kind of touch the ground with it. And for me, that's cutting off and clearing any negative entities, spirits that might have tried to drain my energy, use my energy, may have tried to attach, anything like that. It doesn't happen a lot, but I have it there and I use it. So in case that one time that it happens, I've given myself protection. By going around my body, I'm making sure I'm cleaning and clearing around my entire body and aura and energy field. As for the touching the ground, if I can put it onto grass or onto dirt, that I'm connecting it with Mother Nature, and any negative energy it was able to collect, it will go back down into the earth, and earth will cleanse it and put it back out in the world as positive energy again. So that's just me. If you're a witch and you use a dagger, feel free to let us know in the comments what you use. Um, so, um, Not to be like Glenda the Good Witch, but maybe Cinderella's bippity boppity boop, a wand. Again, a lot of witches probably don't use these. This particular one, I have crystals on it. Some people use just pieces of like a branch from a tree that they just kind of cut down and make to a pretty thing. I like this one because it has amethyst, it has quartz. So wands are used to help direct focus and energy. So whereas the athame may help clear energy and stuff like this can actually help direct it. So, generally you're not out there like, ooh, bibbidi boppity. But it could be, when you are doing some kind of spell, it helps you, feel your energy and put your energy into whatever spell you might be doing or ritual. Chalices, any vessel that can hold liquids, they often are a type of a cup, but they're not limited to just cups. Shoot, if you just need something real quick on the fly, you could turn a little bit, little tiny thing here into a chalice if that's what you need. Um, Bottle top. But yeah, anything that can hold liquid. I don't use chalices really in my practice, so I don't really have one to show you, but you could use anything. Pentagrams. Now, this is another one that gets a bad rap, a lot of times, again, tied into the negative stereotype of witchcraft or Satanism. They can be used negatively. They can be used by Satanists. It's totally a possibility, but really, a pentagram is a five-pointed star. So the stereotypical star that you see, that is a pentagram. A pentacle is a pentagram that's enclosed within a circle. So when you see the circle and then you see the star, the orientation of the pentagram determines its meaning. An upright pentagram symbolizes spirit over matter and the elements air, fire, earth, and spirit. Whereas the inverted pentagram with 2 points up often symbolizes spirits dominated by matter or has associations with the Satanism, the more negative. A pentacle is a pentagram inside of a circle, which means wholeness and protection. So that's why the circle is there. So when the pentacle is upright and it's, got the circle around it, it's like a protection. So, like how some people would wear their cross if they're, a variation of a Christian religion. This is kind of like the same thing for that. Now, again, I don't have a deity, I don't follow a deity, but I do wear pentacles and pentagrams for protection. Um, and they could be worn, they could be drawn, symbolically onto things. So it just really depends on, what you wanna do with it, you don't have to wear it, you don't have to use it at all in your practice. Um, and then there's affirmation candles. Um, So often people will carve words into them like peace and focus and love, and then light it while meditating, or even just light it and, let it burn and use intentions. Meditation is a very specific intention, but I don't meditate well. So, like, I would be the type that would be in using my intentions, directing the positive energy and the candle, but I would be probably doing stuff. I don't sit and just meditate very well. My brain doesn't turn off that way. I do advise if anybody wants to try working with candles, if you are a baby witch or you're just interested in trying something. Again, go do research online and figure out, what you're doing and why you're doing it. Don't just do it to do it unless you want to. Like I said, you know, I do whatever I want. I try whatever I want. But I have a little bit more experience with it all. So I have an idea of where I'm going with things. So I advise that if you are starting out, use birthday cake candles or small tapered votive candles, or like really small tapered candles, because some spells, they want you to sit and burn the whole candle in one sitting. And if you have one of those large tapers, you have one of those large pillars, yeah, it's easier to write on, but how long is that going to take to burn down completely? That could take you days sometimes. The little candles are harder to write on. Birthday candles, they're going to be really hard to write on. So you might try using them without writing, more focusing intention versus writing. If you do actually want to write, use a small votive or a small tapered candle. That gives you a little bit more room to carve into it. But yeah, that was a trick that somebody taught me when I was a baby witch, and OMG, that helped so much. Like, you don't even know, like, how long I had to sit there with my patients and wait for a candle to burn down. So now crystals. Again, I've mentioned crystals before, so I got 3, crystals and minerals here to show you. Got a lot more, but I didn't want to spend a lot of time on all of this. So what I am going to show first, and these are just specific shapes and sizes. You could work with a tiny little raw piece, and it will be just as powerful as a big piece. Some of these are actually more decorative pieces. I use them. I use their energy. I'm not saying that I don't, but they are a little bit bigger and have a little bit more fun to their looks because we collect them. But that being said, you don't have to shell out a ton of money on crystals and minerals and all of that. You could buy little stuff. It's okay. You don't have to have huge pieces to make it work. Um, you can even buy little necklaces that are inexpensive, things like that. I have a lot of my necklaces are different types of crystals and minerals. That way I could wear whatever I think I feel I need energy wise that day. So, anyhow, back on rose quartz. So, rose quartz is a quartz crystal, but instead of being clear like that one, it's got a more pink tint to it. And it is the quartz of love. That's maybe obvious with it being pink, but it's not. It's love and romance, but also love and relationships. So, it's not just for if you're trying to fall in love or trying to fix a relationship, it's for all relationships. So it's to, put protection on, relatives of yours, friends, different things like that. There's lots of other uses as well, harmonious relationships. So again, research. There's so many uses. I'm only giving you guys a few here on each one. I could go on for days, but I'm not going to. The one of my That's not necessarily a favorite. I just really like that one to people who are new to them. But the other 2 are 2 of my favorites. So the my absolute favorite has always been amethyst. So here's kind of a in the raw, broken open amethysts. But you can see them. This end of my wand is an amethyst, so it's a very, very light purple. Again, it's another quartz. All of the quartzes are amazing. You can never go wrong with a quartz. If in doubt, buy a quartz. If in doubt, buy a clear quartz, but any quartz. They're all great. All minerals are, but they're all great. So, amethysts give you a lot of protection, clarity, and wisdom. Um, so part of how I resonate with it is how it looks. I own a ton of amethysts. I own jewelry. I own rocks. Um, I have stuff on my desk at work, so I have a lot of amethysts there as well. Um, it's just such a great, and it's so pretty. So, like I said, you can get it like that, or you can get it, it's kind of this is a polished, what they call polished. And sometimes that's a lighter purple. This is a darker purple. They come in different shades of purple, but there's no wrong amethyst purple. One purple is not more powerful than another. So a very pale amethyst and a very bright purple amethyst will work just as well as the other. Now this other one is more of a mineral. All the crystals are minerals, but you know, minerals aren't always crystals. So this one is a mix of mineral and crystal, but more heavy on the mineral. And it's one of my other favorites, and that's labradorite. And I don't know, I'm gonna see. I posted it on our social medias, so you can go out there at solanoparanormal.com and see more information about labradorite on our social medias. But yeah, this is one of my favorites. I don't know if you can see it, but if you get it just the right way, there's like a heart, but then if you also tilt it, it kind of looks like a forest. So I don't know. That's just me. Again, I have a lot smaller versions of these. This is a pretty hefty one. I don't know. These are all pretty hefty, but this is maybe the heaviest of them. Um, but I have jewelry, I have pieces at work, I have a lot of smaller pieces, but I had to buy this one because I saw the heart and I just had to have it because I love labradorite. And, we have, in town where I live, we have an amazing rock shop. It is huge and the prices are awesome. I'm not gonna go ahead and plug them right here because they're not paying me money. So, but they are a great place to go. And I was walking through there and they had it on sale and it made it so inexpensive that I was like, I have to have that. When you start getting into bigger pieces of minerals and crystals, they can start getting very costly. And then, of course, there are rarer ones that get really, really expensive. So you could pick and choose whatever crystals work for you, whatever you like. Um, oh, I think I forgot to mention. So labradorite is good for protection against negative energies, enhancing your intuition and your spiritual growth. And again, these are just a few descriptions. All of these can do so, so much more. Um, and if you haven't noticed, I 2 of these work for protection. A lot of the crystals I work with and minerals are for protection, 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 protection. I went to a Mystique fair here this weekend, and I bought from one of the booths a piece of tiger eye that they have glued to one of those things you stick on your vent clips. And they had a lot of different types that I could have bought, but I specifically bought the tiger's eye because it's really good for safety and protection when traveling. So, what better to put in your car than protection and traveling? So it's just so many things out there. Like, I'm not even touching the tip of what any of these can do. Um, Lots out there. If you want more stuff on social media, if you want me to do Q&As, like I said, I can do Q&As and show more of the crystals I have and talk about them more. But let's move on. Sorry. Got me sidetracked. Can you tell me I love me some crystals? So Herbs, a lot of sage, rosemary, lavender is used. Again, when using something like sage, I would be very careful where you bought it and how you're using it, and if it was ethically sourced. Um, there's so many different herbs and um, woods that can be worked with, that can be burned for cleansing, which I'll mention down below. But just be very, very careful with the sage because that is an indigenous practice. And there is some issues with people going and stealing their plants off their land and sometimes creating shortages and such because they're stealing it to sell because so many people want to use it. You're going to find it everywhere, everywhere. Every metaphysical shop you go into is going to sell it. It doesn't matter. You're gonna find it online, so you're gonna see it and think like, "Oh, well, everybody's using it, I need to too." If you feel like you have to, make sure it's ethically sourced. Otherwise, burn something else. That being said, I do use sage in some of my practices with herbs, but I'm using either sage that I grow in my own yard and or sage that I bought for cooking. I'm not buying, white sage off the internet from somebody random that they don't know where they got it from. They just ordered it bulk somewhere. So just be careful with sage. Um, and then cauldrons. Cauldrons can be used for transformation. They can be used for spell work. They can be used for divination. You see in the movies or Halloween, cauldrons are the big, black, bubbly, pot. And you can spend a lot of money. You could go buy one of those, but you know what? A bowl can be a cauldron, a pan can be a cauldron, Dutch oven, cast iron Dutch oven, perfect cauldron. It just depends on what you wanna do with it. Are you doing different divination with it, like trying to read water? Some people will do that, try to, read reflections on water. Then you might want a different kind of container. So you want to see what it is that you're going to want to do with it and then choose what kind of container to use from there. Now, if you have the money to go buy a big old bubbling cauldron, Halloween, witchy style, good for you. I don't use them a whole lot. So a lot of times if I'm working with something like New Year's, on New Year's Day, I always do a simmer pot. I do simmer pots throughout the year, but I do especially special ones. And I just use a regular pot on the stove. I'm not trying to use any special cauldron because for me it's the intention and it's the stuff I put in the simmer pot. And what a simmer pot is, it's when you fill it with water and then fill it with herbs and spices and potentially like food products. Like I'll throw orange slices in it or orange peel, sometimes apples. Um, Sometimes I use them throughout the winter just to make the house smell good, kinda like incense. We burn a lot of incense here, so it's just another version of that. Don't do it during the summer because it's too hot, don't need the stove running. So that's why I stick to the winter with those. But New Year's, I always do a New Year's one, for protection and cleansing and prosperity and, um yeah, really, I just need a saucepan or a pot. I don't need anything fancy. Um, and some witches create altars. They're sacred spaces with objects that represent the four elements or their intentions, or both. Altars often hold these items, but everyday objects can work as well. So, back with some of the supplies, the tools we were talking about. A butter knife can be your athame, a teacup can be your chalice. The magic is in you, not the object. Magic comes from intention, not tools. And that brings us to some simple spells that anyone can try. And just really quick before we move on to that, I have an altar and I keep adding to my altar. And now my altar has very specific parts of it, but also parts of my house are now my altar as well. So it just depends on your intention. Some people's altars are more like if you've seen like um what is it? Oh, my brain just fried. My brain just fried. Day of the Dead. Like how you see, again, that's a specific culture, but how they do altars to their deceased family members. Even though that is specific, that's a holiday specific to their culture. There are many people who will do altars to a passed away family member, multiple passed away family members, maybe just a generic overview of their family history. So maybe some old historic objects from their family. Um, the altars could just be a bunch of crystals. It could be supplies of various sorts. So that's kind of where I said my altar is spread out throughout my house because I have a lot of crystals protecting all over now. And, um, yeah, I have all kinds of stuff. So I went from one little bookshelf shelf to most of the bookshelf to a desk, an old family heirloom desk, just everywhere. I just got stuff everywhere now, and my husband puts up with it and allows it and loves me. And so, yeah, we are just witchy all over the house. So here's just to kind of, wrap things up and give you some beginner friendly spells. Again, I'm not pushing anybody to do anything. This is just if you want to tip your toe into the water and say, "Hey, what's this like?" Um, do it, don't do it. If you wanna get more into it, tons of books online and, at your library or to buy, lots of websites nowadays. Just be cautious with where you're getting your information online, and make sure it's, legit and follows the principles that you believe in. But here we go. Let's talk about a few little things. So protective jars. You can create yourself a protection jar for yourself, for your household, for your family. Um, you could put so many things into a protection jar. You can make them so many different ways with so many different types of jars. But you want something simple, go ahead, and if you wanna use a mason jar, go ahead. If you finished up your, jam and you wanna rinse that out and peel off the wrappers, you could use that. Put in some salt, just regular kitchen salt or Himalayan pink salt, doesn't matter. Rosemary, it could be dried rosemary, doesn't have to be fresh. Put in some black tourmaline, that's another type of mineral. That's one example. You can look up some other crystals and put some other type of crystal in there as well. You can leave it out if you actually cannot get your hands on it. Seal it up, just screw on the lid, put it near your doorway, inside or out. It'll help keep your house protected from negative energy coming in. Um, some people will go as far as to put more stuff in there and then actually melt wax and seal it closed that way, or glue or wax fabric over it. So there's lots of different variations. This is just the very simple, very plain. Smoke cleansing, again, to talk about that, not the rosemary. Actually, rosemary is really good to use. The sage, to mention the sage again. You can burn lots of different types of herbs, lots of types of different woods to clear energies in your home. Just make sure you're using ones that are appropriate to your cultural heritage. Also, while you're burning it, you want to make sure the doors and windows are open to help release the negative energy. That's the bare minimum. You could just light it, put it in a bowl or a pan, and let it burn there. That's fine. If you wanna do more work with it, you can carry it around the house and fan it into all of the corners, up in the ceiling, all around the house. You wanna go in one direction. Do Google online. There is different, thought processes on going clockwise or counterclockwise. And again, those windows and doors open because the negative energy needs somewhere to go. So if you don't have a door or window or multiple open, where do you expect it to go? So you may be cleansing it into a corner in a closet and then it comes back out later because it had nowhere to go. Um, And yeah, like I mentioned, rosemary is a really good one. So, that's not really tied down to any one culture. So feel free to use rosemary. And like I said, there's lots of types of woods out there too. Crystal charging. So what I do with every new crystal I get, whether it's a necklace, whether it's a little piece I'm taking to work, whether it's something I'm giving to somebody, it doesn't matter. If it's just a decoration, it goes out in the moon and the bare minimum. So you can research online what you need, and pick a mineral or crystal from there. So if you're looking for protection, if you're looking for abundance, whatever, Google it, see what's a good, mineral crystal. When you get it, put it out under the moon. If you can't put it outside because you're in like an apartment or something, put it in the window in your car. Put it on the windowsill in your window. As long as the moon can hit it, it's going to cleanse it. It's going to charge it. You can also use the sun, but be careful of the sun with some crystals and minerals. It could damage them or we can start a fire. So we don't want to do that. So just be very, very careful. So the moon's always a good go-to. Again, you can also use salt water, but there's a lot of minerals that can't get wet. So if you put it in water, you don't even have to use salt water. You could just use running water over it. It's possibly could damage it. So do your research. So moon is best in my opinion. Maybe not everybody's, but in my opinion, it's the safest. Um, and not only does it cleanse it, but it charges it and then it's ready to go. If you've used it a whole lot, put it out in the moon again. Regularly put it out in the moon to re-cleanse it and recharge it. That way it can continue doing its job. If a mineral or a crystal ever breaks, it's done its job. You could do multiple things. You can cleanse it and just use it as a pretty decoration around your home, depending on what it is. If it's jewelry and part of it's still wearable, you can cleanse it and still wear it just as beautiful jewelry, or you can bury the pieces in the ground. If it's broken, it's done its job and it's no longer going to have the same power to help you out. So there's different ways you can go. Um, and then once you've cleansed and charged it, wear it if it's jewelry. You can keep it near you, put it in your pocket when you're going about your daily routine. You could put it by your bedside if it's something that's, good for sleep. I say you could put them in your car, but don't put them on your dashboard. Please, 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 if you put them in your car, put them in like your dash drawer or something like that, or your middle console. You don't want them turning into projectiles in your car. I have some in my car besides the one that I talked about just buying. Now that one, the way it's smoothed out and attached, it won't become a projectile. But yeah, you don't want to slam on your brakes and then have one slam into you or a friend or family member. So I keep some in my console. So I actually have a little first aid box, one of those little to-go ones that I put them in there and then put that in the console. So they're all safe and tidy, but they're still there giving me protection. And then every so often I take them out and I put them on my dashboard. And then the next day I'll scoop them up and put them back in there and put them back in the console. Um, if you're taking them to work, put them, around your desk at work or on your desk at work. Yeah, just wherever you want. We have them by the front door outside. We just have them everywhere. But you don't have to go crazy like we do. Just a few, it's just fine. Um, Herbal tea spells. So you can brew some chamomile or peppermint, stir it clockwise while focusing on healing. So again, this is an intention. So it doesn't have to be just these two, and it doesn't have to be just healing. This is just an example. But while you're stirring it, intention. You could do this with your morning coffee every day. Positive affirmation while stirring, stirring, stirring. My day's going to be great. My day's going to be amazing. And you're putting that positive intention in, you're putting that positive energy out. That's a simple spell. So herbal teas, chamomile, peppermint, really great for healing. Also taste really good, calming, good for stomach, lots of different things. And that goes back to the herbs, if you're using herbs. Um, Also, while I say that, sometimes people, instead of buying individual bottles of herbs, they'll buy packets of herbal teas that have the herbs in them and just open that tea bag to put in whatever spell they're working on. So then there's also paper sigil spells. So you can write a wish, convert it into a sigil, and burn it or bury it to release the energy. Now that's where you would take the letters and you would I can't really show you here, but you can Google it online. You would take the letters of the word and, like, overlap them on each other, and it would make a shape or a, you know, yeah, like a shape, and then, that would be your sigil. So you could use it like, it says, burn it, bury it to release the energy. Some people will carve them onto things. I've even seen people make their own personal ones and get tattoos with them. So it just depends on what you wanna use it for. But this is a way that you could just make a little wish. So there's lots of great books out there. Believe it or not, your local library is going to have a ton. If you're in the US and your libraries have access to things like Libby and Hoopla, you can find ebooks and audiobooks on there. I do listen to a lot of audiobooks, but I generally recommend having access to the actual book to see, because sometimes they'll talk about things, and if you're busy doing things and can't scribble everything down, it's better to have the book to be able to flip through and see what they're visually talking about. So lots of information out there. Again, there's, groups on, the various social medias, things like that. So you could totally find a lot of information out there if you're interested in learning more. If you're interested in trying something, again, I'm not promoting for everybody to try it. I'm just putting the information out there. Lots of books you can buy at the bookstores, on websites. I mean, if you're interested in book titles, put a note in the comment and I can message you some titles. I'm not trying to promote anything or anybody in particular, but I have read a lot of books over the years, so I could possibly recommend what you're looking for. It just depends on whether you want more of the history of it, if you want more spells, crystals, what are you looking for? So that's pretty much what I have to say about that. There was one other one I was going to talk about, but my brain's just completely lost it. So I guess we'll just wrap up here. Oh, I was going to talk about brooms. So brooms, people see the stereotype of brooms with witches. And yes, a lot of witches do like brooms. I have brooms. But it's not the stereotype. Everybody, sees the witches flying on brooms. Witches never could fly on brooms. Probably where that misconception came about was back in the day, there was a ritual. I believe it might have been a fertility ritual where women of the village would put brooms between their legs and hop around a fire, like a child, does, or like the hobby horses or whatever, and so it was part of their ritual. So that's probably where the stereotype came from. I could be wrong, but that's the information I've gotten. But we do use brooms and spells. We do use brooms for protection. I keep one above my door to my house on the inside. I have a little one that I bought the other day that has cinnamon on it for, protection and stuff and cleansing. I have one at work, a little tiny one on my desk. And, um, the big takeaway I have is the way I've always practiced is when you leave a location you're living in, do not take your old brooms to the new home. Buy new brooms and start out fresh at the new home. Throw away the old brooms from the old home once you're completely moved out. So either in the trash can there or on your way back to the new place, or the trash can at the new place, but don't bring them into the house. That's something I've always practiced, because a lot of what brooms symbolize with witches is the cleansing and protecting of negative energies from the home and the family. So that's why the broom above the door, like New Year's or sometimes a few times a year, sweep the house and then sweep it out the front door or out the back door. Um, don't don't sweep from your doors into the house because you want to sweep negative energy out. Um, so yeah, so there's a lot of fun behind the brooms too, and there's broom rituals in a lot of different cultures, not just witchcraft. Um, but that's a whole different topic. Um, so just remember that you don't need a cauldron. Your kitchen works just fine, and magic is everyday intention. Whether you're curious, practicing, or just listening, we hope this inspires you. Let us know in the comments or by contacting us at 707-398-3848 if you want us to cover any part of this topic deeper in future episodes, or if you fall into any of these categories and would like to be interviewed. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you are listening now and follow our social medias at solano.paranormal.com or at Solano Paranormal. Our website is solano.paranormal.com. Blessed be. Bye. Oh my God. And